White pastor warns white parents to keep their kids away from black people for this shocking reason. Oh boy, video by J.R. Wisdom. Now, this is some crazy shit right here, dude.
If you're a Christian white parent who loves the Lord and loves your children, that you need to have the talk.
Why is your race important to you as a Christian? Where in the Bible does it say to make that an important factor? I thought there was no Jew or no Greek in Christ. Well, okay.
The talk that we're referencing is the talk that takes your children according to their maturity at the proper time, the appropriate time, and says there are certain parts of town that you cannot go.
Okay.
And there are certain people that you cannot be around.
Yeah. Yep. All right. That's fine.
There's someone who is black in our church, and they've been in our church, and we know them, and they love the Lord Jesus Christ. Great. We're not talking about that person, but we're talking about when you go into a crowd of people.
You see how Christianity is a tool that white people, white Christians are actively aware it whitewashes black people of their blackness, of their black culture.
If you go into a crowd of strangers and they're white strangers, there's some danger. If they're black strangers, there is 30 times more danger.
What the fuck is this guy talking? You see, this is the racist bullshit that I'm talking about. They just lie. They just lie. You see, you can have your own opinions in regards to subjective matters, but when we have cold, hard data, when we have cold, hard numbers that tell us without any shadow of a doubt that as a white person, your greatest threat in regards to acts of violence are other white people, over 80% of homicide victims, white homicide victims, white on white crime is the biggest threat to white people. How is it possible that 80% of white deaths are caused at the hands of white people, but yet somehow black people are 30 times more dangerous? That don't make no fucking sense.
Them's the facts. And it is actually a failure of your parental duty. White parents, please hear me. If you teach your children growing up, if you lie to them and say all people and all races of people in our country are the same.
You're right. You're right. You got to be more careful around white people if you're white. That's a fact. That's a fact. Statistically.
You are actually depriving your child of factual, truthful information that could save their life.
Now, guys, I found this to be very interesting. Black folks are going to mug you.
Right.
They're going to delete you. They're going to take you out, things like that. But if you go to his church, everything is fine. So if you guys don't
how could you be a black person attending this guy's church? Well, the same way you can be a black person mourning the death of Charlie Kirk. Now, I'm not saying we should celebrate it, but you ain't got to be sad, nigga. You don't. You're not obligated. They were not sad at all about George Floyd. They were not sad at all about, not even if you don't want to make it a race thing, the Minnesota House of Representatives, right, who were brutally murdered. Nobody was sad about that. They were assassinated by a far-right Republican. They don't care about that shit. So you ain't obligated to be sad, bro.
This gentleman he's a Texas pastor. His name is Joel Webbin.
Yeah, this guy's a fucking racist. He actually believes that women should no longer have the right to vote either. And he also identifies as a Christian nationalist, so which is just the new face of the KKK, to be real with you.
And he identifies as a Christian nationalist, right? Says black strangers are 30 times more dangerous.
Right.
If you're a white person going into a group of black strangers as opposed to a group of white strangers.
Right.
But it would be strange if you think about it. The question I would like to ask before we get into this next video is, what is a white person doing around a bunch of black folks to begin with? It's very...
Yeah, but okay, that ain't the right question, bro. It ain't no matter. It don't matter. Listen, they're not in danger around black people. That's what the math tells us. Now, the reality is, yes, if you're a white person and you go to a gang-infested neighborhood, regardless of race, it could be a Mexican gang-infested neighborhood, a black, a white, and you're a square and you don't know how to fucking move, yeah, you're going to be victimized. You will be made a victim because you're going into literal war zones. You're going into literal criminal infested neighborhoods. But the reality is they make up an exceedingly small percentage of not just the territory in terms of area, places you can go travel to, but of the population as well.
But I got a clip I want to play in reference to the recently passed Charlie Kirk.
Sure.
We're going to get into that, guys. Let's go.
Black Americans, about 13 to 14% of the population.
Yes,
about half of all prisoners are black.
Exactly.
So blacks commit more
That's false. That's just literally false. Half of all prisoners are not black.
crimes than whites do. They commit more murders, they commit more arsons, they commit more kidnappings. For example, blacks are 13% of the population and they commit 58% of all the murders.
Okay, let's talk about it. These are obviously
Okay.
racist claims, but I will respond to them as if Charlie Kirk were a reasonable person.
Black Americans, about 13 to 14% of the population.
Yes,
about
I know
half
that.
of all prisoners are black.
Wrong. Just 38% of America's prison population is black. That's
Right.
according to the U.S. government. But it makes you wonder why Charlie feels the need to add an additional 12% to the black prison population. Could it
Right.
be because his bigoted talking points only work if he exaggerates them? If
Of
Charlie
course.
were actually looking for the race that makes up half the prison population in the U.S., he'd look no further than white people at 57%.
Exactly.
So blacks commit more crimes than whites do.
Wrong. The word "so" is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that sentence.
Yeah.
So blacks commit more crimes.
He's saying "so" as in therefore, as in one could conclude, but Charlie knows he's lying. Even if he hadn't just lied about the black prison population, Charlie is smart enough to know that correlation does not equal causation, but he's hoping that you don't know that. So he deploys the word "so" to make you think he's coming to an obvious conclusion.
Exactly.
So blacks
Instead, he's making an illogical racist leap. Charlie knows that we don't have usable data about who commits crimes. It's impossible to have that data since so many crimes go both unreported and or unsolved. Charlie
Right.
knows that we only have data about arrests and convictions. I'll come back to that data in a moment. What's painfully obvious is that Charlie Kirk isn't interested in understanding the statistics he so carelessly misquotes. He's interested in making bad faith arguments. Something that becomes even more obvious in his next point.
blacks are 13% of the population and they commit 58% of all the murders.
Wrong again, and loud this time. If Charlie were interested in honesty, he would have mentioned the other 1350 statistic. Yes, black people are about 13% of the population, but make up 53% of all criminal exonerations. In fact, black people make up 55% of all murder exonerations.
Wow.
Specifically, black people are more likely than any other group in this country to be convicted of crimes they did not commit. And then
Right.
people like you have the nerve to parade these stats around as though they prove something. The reality is
Yeah, and this point is, it goes over the heads of a lot of people who are indoctrinated on the right. The fact that you can look and see how many black people are in prison and think that gives you an honest representation of who is actually committing a crime. Guys, here's the thing. Crime and poverty, there is a strong correlation between those things. Where do poor whites live? They live out in the country. They live out in the boonies, right? That's where the majority of poor whites live. They live in the middle of the country.
Everybody knows everybody, and it hadn't changed in 100 years. It's still like the Wild West. People fight for what they got. They're tough people. Lives in these woods. It's kind of a lawless type place. You come in here and you try to push people around and somebody will put a bullet in you.
A lot of these poor white towns in the middle of the country, they have an incredibly small police station with not that many officers, and they all are friends and related to the people in the community.
Everybody knows everybody, and it hadn't changed in 100 years.
He got his name by carrying a crowbar around. And when he carried the crowbar around, people knew to stay out of his way.
That was his favorite tool,
For what?
whatever he needed.
So when they go to these black neighborhoods, however, and you send white officers in there who have no connection to the community, they already are stereotyping black people. They already have that white supremacist racism coded into them. Then you put exponentially more in there to patrol the area. So they're already suspicious of everybody, and you have way more people, and they're not cutting anyone any slack. They're not doing anyone any favors. I think the Charlie Kirk situation and the assassin is a perfect example of that. Here we have this dude, he commits this murder, and he confesses to his father. His father is a pastor and ex-law enforcement, and he didn't turn his son in. This is what I mean. This man literally assassinated somebody that they actually worship, or at least his father would have been a huge fan of a guy like Charlie Kirk. And he still didn't turn his son in. Why? Because they cut each other slack. I mean, just think about it, bro. Imagine you're a cop, you're a black cop, and you pull over one of your boys from high school who was going a little bit above the speed limit. Maybe you're in Texas, you pull over one of your boys from college. Texas, weed is illegal, and he's smoking a blunt when you pull up on him. What are the chances you just gonna let that shit slide? Way more, right? It's natural. I ain't even saying that white people are evil for moving like that. People are biased, bro, and people help out their friends and their family. You know what I'm saying? How you gonna bring little Jim to jail, Johnny, when you was just at Jim's auntie's fucking Thanksgiving dinner? You know what I'm saying? You was just at Jim's little sister's graduation. You gonna put Jim in jail because he was driving drunk? Hey, he ain't gonna crash into anybody. There ain't nobody out here. We live out in the middle of nowhere. Point is, the true reason why we see this disparity in regards to crime being committed between blacks and whites is because white people are not turning themselves in, bro. They're not turning each other in. Of course, the prisons are filled with white people, but I'm saying you get away with it more when you're white. Why do I say that? Because when we actually take a look at other markers of morality in these populations, what we find is that blacks and whites, for the most part, are pretty much identical. For instance, blacks and whites use weed at the same rate. Blacks and whites use hard drugs at the same rate. I'm not talking number of people. I'm talking actual percentage of each population. Reality is, guys, we're all human and we all have the same vulnerabilities and flaws. And truly, if we lived in a world or in a country where everything was equal or equitable, I believe we would see crime statistics, education statistics, accomplishment, everything would be about the same for everybody. That is the reality. The lies that these people need to constantly tell themselves to believe the foolishness and ridiculousness that they do is mind-blowing. But that's the video. You let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Thank you for watching. Peace out.